But the coolest thing with this is how you actually reload this, because how cool is that? There's your batteries. Hello there, that's right, we are back with another episode of the T45 Power Armor build series. If you missed out the first episode, we wrapped up the helmet. Now, I've done a little bit more tinkering with the helmet itself, a little bit more weathering, but the helmet's done. We're putting that aside. And today's video I was hoping would be about the boots and the legs of the armor. As you can see here, we have one boot done. I actually have the second boot on the floor here. By the way, they weigh about 4 kilograms each. They are not exactly light, but the lower half of the armor is taking a little bit longer than I expected. There's a little bit more finagling involved. So in today's episode, we're not going to talk about the legs. We're not going to talk about the helmet. We're going to get armed. So let's get started. And if the words that I'm about to say for the rest of the video trigger any YouTube censorship flags or anything, these are completely inert 3D printed props from a video game. They don't do anything. The most they can do is light up a little LED. So that's right, we're gonna be talking about the weaponry that I am pairing with the T45 Power Armor in today's video. And I went with two things. I figured we'd go with the Ripper, a classic from the Fallout series, along with the AEP7 las pistol, specifically the model that's used more in Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, the best Fallout game, fight me. And the reason I'm going with these two ones is quite simple. They're smaller. When I did my Mandalorian suit last year, I had a Republic Commando blaster, and one of the things I kind of noticed, especially walking around an event, is when you're wearing something with limited visibility, and with the power armor, I'm also going to have pretty limited mobility as well. Carrying around a big honking blaster, while it looks really cool, you end up bumping people with it quite often. So with the power armor, I'm gonna go with something kind of smaller. We're gonna start with the Ripper. Now this is actually the simplest of the two props. This is completely inert. It doesn't move, it doesn't do anything. I would have loved to have built a real Ripper with like a nitro cart motor in it and the chain move using chainsaw chains, but this is a prop. We don't need it to be functional, we just need it to kind of look cool. So this is 3D printed. I'll have all the files for both of these in the video description. I printed the files for this on my Prusa Mark IV in some carbon fiber PETG. I had really good experience with that material with the helmet, so I figure, hey, we'll use it on this if it ain't broke. And this build was actually pretty simple. I printed the parts on the Prusa, glued them all together, and then we got to painting and weathering. And for this, I did do a couple little things. The grip itself, I sprayed with bed liner, simply to give it that kind of textured finish, make it look like a rubberized grip. I may end up wrapping this with some grip tape or hockey tape or something just to kind of make it look a little bit more personalized in the field. And then for the paint, we just went with simple rattle can spray paint. And then for the weathering, if you want to watch how I weathered this, I actually did it on a live stream. I'll have it linked below, but I did my usual weathering method, where I used a dry brush to do some chip damage with some metallic paints. And then we did some further weathering. I used black acrylic paint, watered down, dab that all over, give it a nice little tarnished look. And then also one other thing I did, I used some, where did I put it? This stuff, Army Shade that I had from a kit I had bought a while ago for painting some figurines and models. And I used some of that just to give it some brown dirtiness to it. It works pretty good. I think it came out pretty well. I'll probably keep adjusting and tweaking stuff as I go. I have a tendency to come back into the garage every now and then late at night and just fiddle with something for a bit. But I think that turned out pretty good. And again, nothing really fancy with this. This is just straight 3D printed, spray painted, and then a little bit of brushwork, and we have ourselves a Ripper. I don't know how I'm gonna mount it to the power armor when we get to it, but I figure a holster on the side. So that's the Ripper, nice and easy. Now, the las pistol though, this took a little bit more work because the stock file for this that I found doesn't actually do this. I've modified the files, and these files are on Thingiverse. These are actually pretty old files. The original files for this have the light turn on, and actually it's originally designed for a laser, with a knob on the back, so it's simple and on-off switch. But two things with that. One, I didn't want to use a laser because, again, limited mobility and visibility wearing a suit of power armor. I don't want to accidentally shoot a laser in somebody's eye. Lasers freak me out. They can do a lot of damage if you're not careful. And even with like a cheap little, the laser pointer laser that you get at dollar store. I didn't want to risk accidentally hitting somebody in the eye. So the LED in here is just a simple 5-volt red LED. That's it, nothing fancy. I just bought it off Amazon. It came with the resistor and all that wired in line. So it's just a red LED. But for the trigger, we had to modify the files. And at first I thought it would be a little bit more complicated than it turned out being. Modifying the files for this, all I did was just extend the slot that the trigger sits in, shoved a spring in the trigger itself so that it would reset, and then I just glued in a micro switch. So when it's at the back, it trips a micro switch, which connects the circuit and makes the LED turn on, and then the spring pushes it back forward. I did it in Windows 3D Builder in like 10 minutes, and then I printed the modified files. Not very complicated, very simple. I'm sure there are better ways that could have gone about doing it, but hey, it works. No, it doesn't go pew pew, unfortunately, though. But the coolest thing with this is how you actually reload this, because how cool is that? There's your batteries. So that is the battery pack. It is 3 AAA batteries and a 3D printed holder there. One of the more complicated things I had to do was because this is all kind of semi-custom, I had to make springs with some wires and solder it all up in contact points, because when you put the batteries in, they have to be able to compress a little bit to make it work when you slam that in there. And that allows it to power it. So the wiring is pretty simple. There's no PCBs or anything like that. It's just straight up wires from the batteries. The batteries are wired in series, so we get higher voltage for the 5-volt LEDs. And yeah, it's quite simple. The micro switch just connects the circuit. Easy peasy, nothing fancy at all. For weathering, we did the usual weathering that I do now with the black acrylic paint watered down. I also used, again, the strong tone Army Painter quick shade that I happen to have. For this wire here, this is just an extension cable off an old power tool that I cut and painted yellow. The grips themselves, nothing fancy again. I just sprayed it with bed liner to give it a kind of textured finish to make it look like grips. And for putting this together, it's actually kind of nice because this you can kind of take apart. This, the Ripper, is all glued together. This is not coming apart. But with this, if anything breaks on the inside for whatever reason, if got to refix a wire or something, I can take this apart a little bit to get at anything critical and then put it back together. Something to take away from this, some of these parts, I wish I had a resin printer set up and had reprinted some of these parts in resin, mostly just to save some of the hand working of trying to smooth out some of the parts that required support to make them look better. And it just would have cut down a lot of the post-processing time on some of the more fiddly bits instead of FDM. So again, if you have a resin printer, don't be afraid to use it to print parts that go with FDM stuff. It saves a lot of time. Resin prints come out much cleaner. So if you can use it, if you got the tool, you might as well use it. So yeah, so those are the 2 prop weapons that we're going to pair with the T45 power armor. For this one, I don't know if I'll try and figure out a holster or something, or just kind of carry it around. For this one, I would like to have it holstered on the suit at some point, but as we get further in the suit build, I'll figure it out when we get to it. So again, short little update this week because I've been working on the legs, and hopefully in the coming weeks we'll have that done, and that will be the next update video. So again, if you want to see more cool projects like this, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, like the smash button, ring the bell, do all the other stuff YouTubers are supposed to tell you to do. And if you want to help support the channel, the content I create, and the things I do, consider becoming a channel member, Patreon supporter. And if you're really cool, join us on our live streams that we do 3 times a week, and gift memberships to others, because that way it allows other people to hang out when we do cool, fun stuff, and you get videos early. I'm Taylor, the Canuck creator, and rip and tear for old time's sake. Kapla! Ah! Am I really gonna end the video like, yeah, I guess I am gonna end the video like that. Bye!